I think Van Dijk is the best Premier League defender.
Vidic is probably the third best Premier League centre-half for Manchester United.
Many of these players hasn't actually done it for 4 to 5 years consistently at world-class level.
Hello and welcome to Hold the L. My name is Flav and this is a brand new football debate show on the Super 6 YouTube channel, where it's not about getting a dub, it's making sure you're not the one left holding the L. Before we introduce our guests, you're probably wondering who held the L last time out. Well, McInerney shared it with the votes on the show, but 10,000 of you went over to the community tab to say that I was the one that should hold the L again. Harry Kane is still in this conversation, even though he's the only one that didn't win a league title. He has to be. There's no chance. Barring maybe Henry, that both of you wouldn't swap Harry Kane for Salah and Drogba. So that's why I can't hold the L this week with Harry Kane. 55% of you actually said that it was mental to suggest that Harry Kane could be the best ever Premier League striker. Noted that only 6% of you voted that for Paul, who suggested that Salah was the best ever Premier League striker. Like, is that... You lot need dread testing. On the show today, we have Chris Pajak, we have Stephen McInerney, and we have Akeem from CheekySport. This week's Super 6 have asked us to rank 5 top Premier League centre-backs and told us to rank them in order. Those centre-backs are John Terry, Van Dijk, Sol Campbell, Vincent Kompany, and Vidic. Your 20 seconds start now, boys.
This hurts and annoys me more than anything because he's the player that I dislike the most, but also the player that I respect the most, and that's John Terry on that list. I think he is just absolutely outstanding, and the player that I'm putting at the bottom of my 5 centre-backs is Sol Campbell, because if I had to pick any of them to play in my football team, Sol Campbell will be last.
There's only really one player I can literally top Vincent Kompany with, unfortunately, because 19 seasons in the Premier League, John Terry, he's just had a ridiculous record in the Premier League. Bottom of the list for me, compared to what the others have achieved, I'm sorry, it's Sol Campbell.
Top of the list for me is Van Dijk, an absolutely superb defender. He's the one I like watching, and defending typically isn't the most exciting aspect of the game, but Van Dijk makes it exciting. Bottom of the list for reasons that I can't go into with all honesty, because we wouldn't be able to put this out, but Sol Campbell, bottom of the list by a country mile.
All right, top of the list has to be Vidic, the greatest defender of all time. Many of the greatest strikers say he is the best, including Didier Drogba. And bottom of the list is very, very close, but it has to go to Sol Campbell. He just didn't do enough in comparison to the others and just wasn't consistent in comparison to the others for their 2 or 3 best seasons that everyone had.
I think the best place to start here is Sol Campbell being bottom of everyone's 5-tier list. Pajak, why is he bottom for you?
For me, I think, look, they're all great players. I think we all know that. But what separates them is sort of honours and stuff like that. But also the fact that he made some choice career moves means there was a natural dislike from me to him. I'm sure you can totally appreciate that one, Flav, there, mate.
Without question.
And that kind of comes down to it. He could have been ranked first in this list if he'd made the right career move. And he'd gone on to win a load more trophies and stuff like that, but he didn't, and as such, he's ranked bottom.
The thing is, it's hard to differentiate between these 5 defenders. They're all quality, and we've all been swapping our lists around before recording. But Stephen, you mentioned about the fact that Campbell probably just hasn't won as much as the others.
Well, that's it. I mean, that's it for me. Is once again, as good as he is, and genuinely, they're all absolutely quality. It's one of those things where you only really had a couple of years, competing for titles. Really, at Arsenal, he was only there for about 3 or 4 seasons. How many seasons was it? 5 seasons in the end, but a couple he was injured towards the end. And as good as he was, there's an argument to say that at the end of the day, he wasn't really challenging at the top for as long as maybe some of the others. I know Van Dijk is arguably in that situation as well, but I'm pretty certain he'll be there a little bit longer. But for me, yeah, I guess in terms of what they've won, that's also a big thing against Sol Campbell, as good as he is, which is the caveat for every discussion in this video.
Yeah, of course. And like you said, it's hard to separate them all. I think the most controversial decision, Akeem, is and it's controversial, not in the extreme, was having Vidic at top of the pile. Did you, be honest, did you pick this because he played for Manchester United, or because you genuinely think he was the best?
Good question. Absolutely not. It was a really easy decision, actually, even though we're talking amongst greats right here. Nemanja Vidic is ultimately the player that is most feared as a defender. We're not talking about who's the best ball playing defender. We're not talking about who's the most talented footballer or who can do the most kick-ups. We're talking about who literally is a rock at the back line and can ultimately lead his team to titles as well as Champions Leagues, which is what Vidic done. So it was quite an easy decision when we're talking about who is actually the best defender. But that being said, there is definitely better ball players like Van Dijk, etc. In that five. But Vidic definitely comes on top for me.
Pajak, you've had Vidic as fourth best.
Yeah.
Just above Sol Campbell.
Yeah, I think for me, like Vidic is probably the third best Premier League centre-half for Manchester United. I'd have Rio Ferdinand ranked number 1. I'd have Jaap Stam ranked number 2. And I'd have Nemanja Vidic ranked number 3. Now, I can understand people wanting to place Vidic above Stam because of how many trophies he won there. I think that Ferdinand and Vidic partnership is what made that Manchester United so great, and that's why I think I've ranked Virgil van Dijk above Vidic is simply from the fact that, you know, I think a lot of players could have played alongside Rio Ferdinand and Manchester United won leagues, and that's not to take away anything from Vidic because I think he was fantastic, I really do, but I don't think he would have had the impact on his own in the same way that maybe a Virgil van Dijk has had the impact at Liverpool Football Club when he's been put in there and played alongside Dejan Lovren, Joel Matip, Joe Gomez, carried us to 2 Champions League finals, winning one of them and the Premier League. So for me, I really I think Vidic is amazing. And the players that you mentioned, like the Drogbas and stuff like that, I noticed you didn't have what Torres said about him in there, because Torres used to have a field day against Vidic and didn't fear him. And every one of these defenders, Akeem, and everyone knows this, is going to have their bad games, and that's part and parcel of it. And they're going to have players that they struggle against. You've got to look back at their entire career and realise that just because Vidic struggled against Torres doesn't make him a bad defender in any way, shape or form. But for me, I always feared another couple of Manchester defenders more than Vidic.
I was just going to say, I know we're probably going to go on to talk about the likes of Van Dijk, but you know, what Vidic done for that period of time, and he did take over from Jaap Stam. He was in that role and in that mold, and for sure the partnership did make him you could say look better than he was in many regards from some people's perspective. But he was the rock, he was the most important defender at that back line for United during that time. But I would just say that, you know, when we're talking about Van Dijk and when we're talking about other players, many of these players hasn't actually done it for 4 to 5 years consistently at world-class level.
That's why it's so difficult though here. That's why it's so difficult here, because you've got 4 lads who've retired and 1 lad who's in the middle of a major injury, but also his peak career. Like,
that's why he's fourth. That's why he's fourth, Chris.
Can I just cut in there, because I held the L last week because of said Harry Kane. I said he could be the best Premier League striker, and everyone was going, well, like Henry's retired. Kane could overtake Henry, but I wasn't giving it. I held the L there, Chris.
Yeah, but that's because it's a ridiculous shout to put Harry Kane number 1. For the last 3 years, Mo Salah's been in the same league as him and scored more goals.
I'm just making a point.
We don't get that. No, but Harry Kane could go on, but right now he's not. Okay. That's what we're arguing, and I'm arguing that even with being in the middle of his career, Van Dijk has offered more, I think, than some other players.
Can I just jump in with the Vidic thing? For me, is like what Vidic, once again, absolutely phenomenal. But for me, Vidic was, you're talking that his style was physical. He was an aggressive centre back. You know, he was dominant. He was physical. A perfect complement towards for Rio Ferdinand. But for me, if I'm genuinely, and I'm not just trying to be old Man City fan here, but if I'm choosing someone who does the physicality thing better, but also is a natural leader who speaks 5 languages, also had a penchant for an incredible big moment with a goal.
Come on,
be it Vincent Kompany's long range against Leicester, be it his headers against United, be his leadership. Vincent Kompany, for me, genuinely is a better footballer, for one, in terms of passing around and all that kind of stuff. And he's just as physical, just as aggressive, just more of a leader, naturally more of a leader, genuinely. So that's why I put someone like him and Terry, by the way, ahead of him. And in terms of forward ability, Vidic is fantastic, but I think the 2 others on the list there that I would say are more physical centre-backs, Terry and Kompany, I think they're genuinely better players. And it's not because Vidic is not brilliant. But by the way, we're all 9 out of 10 plus here, so it's 0.01 between any of them. It can change every day, but
they're all good players. And you did mention a rock, but John Terry was probably the biggest rock in of any defence. If you could put him anywhere, and he would have done what Vidic did and what all of the others did as well. And both
he was a good passer as well, wasn't
he? He was underrated as a passer as well. Pajak and Stephen, you both had him as your number one, which there's a lot of credibility there, and this is why I mentioned that, you know, your decision making, Akeem, because there's credibility to both Pajak and Stephen here, because they put Terry above their own respective players. I did
put Terry as number 2. I
don't know how that helps.
So what you're saying is you put him below your player?
Yeah, it's just a little bit of credibility from that perspective.
All right, you can't give yourself credibility. It's other people choose whether you.
I'm just going to pile the credibility on myself.
Yeah. Just let you know, Flav, I've decided that I am right. I'm just letting you know, by the way, mate.
Pajak, tell us why you put John Terry as your number one.
I don't. Do I have to?
Because no, I think it's fair.
I hate this because I said it in me sort of instance of I hated him more as than anybody on this list, and I don't use the word hate very often, to be honest, in football. But John Terry, as a footballer, I absolutely hated him because he was the thorn in our side so often.
So good, isn't it? You hate him because they're good.
He was so annoyingly good. He shouldn't have been as good as he was. He didn't have the attributes to be as good as he was, and that's what annoyed me the most, I think, is that he was able to do it for, what did you guys were saying, 19 seasons there, but even the individual honours, like he was the best player in the league, I think, at times during that period. And I don't know whether Kompany, Vidic, Campbell were the best players in the league. Whereas I think John Terry genuinely was for about 2 or 3 years.
Can I jump in as well?
Just quickly before you do, Stephen. Akeem didn't like him, gives him credibility.
Yeah, I didn't like him either, and I put him second. That's credibility. I just wanted to say, do you know what? I just wanted to say one thing about John Terry, which is why he almost did get first for me. What was incredible about him in comparison to, I think, most of the other defenders, if not all of them on that list, is his goal scoring. You know, he actually netted quite a few goals for a centre half over his 19 years. And he added that to his game and scored a lot of crucial goals during the season, alongside being pretty much one of the best, the second best defender.
Do you want to change the list? You can change its order if you want.
No, it's all right. I'll stick with what I got, thanks.
He gave you the option to go for credibility there, and you just palmed it away like it was nothing.
I'm all for it. I'm all about biased opinion.
What I was going to say is that, well, to be honest, Akeem's thought to me there is like, he scored goals as well, which was very annoying. And also, I was just looking at his stats, and I hate doing this because once again, I don't really like the guy at all. He was literally in 5 FIFA Teams of the Year in a row. Which is just ridiculous, like FIFA Teams of the Year, you know, in the World 11s, which is genuinely insane. Then all the Premier League titles, the FA Cups as well, his honour list is just annoyingly good as well. And like he's had so many individual awards outside of the Premier League, like so many nominations and that kind of stuff you can't really ignore because the rest of Europe and the rest of the world think he was the, if not the best, the second top 1 or 2 defenders in the world for 5 years in a row, which is. That's why I'm saying all this to make me feel better about Vincent Kompany being second behind you on my list because I can't argue that longevity, that immense dedication to one team as well is also incredibly annoying. And he's just overall, he could do everything and it pays me to admit it, but he's a genuinely outstanding defender and his legacy is unmatched in the Premier League for me, with loads of people just behind him. But Terry, you can't argue about those stats and you can't argue about his awards and everything else.
It's really tough because he come through their youth team as well, and he stayed there until they didn't need him anymore. And you know, his legs started to give up, and even then, he probably played on a bit longer than most people would because he loves Chelsea, and they're kind of, for reasons we won't go into, kind of suited together, I think. But can I shock you guys? Can I shock you? I don't think he is. I think Van Dijk is the best Premier League defender, and here's my reasons. I like watching him play more than any other. And if you can, as a centre-back, impress me in terms of your skill and guile and almost the poetry in which he plays football with. That's what I appreciate. I don't necessarily appreciate just defenders going "Bah!" every 5 minutes. "Bah! Away! Away!"
That's his job. That's their job, though. So, you know what I mean? Do you know what? In this day and age now, there's the assumption that every player needs to be a ball player. Like, you know, the goalkeeper needs to be able to do Rabonas. Like, it just isn't necessary.
No, it isn't necessary. But Van Dijk was so good that it became a part of Liverpool's offensive tactic to give him the ball as a centre back. And I don't think that's the case.
By the way,
sorry.
I'm loving the past tense, by the way. We'll keep that there.
He's injured currently, isn't it? I mean, yeah, but you know, like that's what I want to see. And if I had the choice, because the thing is, as a Spurs fan, I'm in an enviable position in a way because I can just look at these 5 players and pick any one of them because they'd all get into our team, right? But if I had to pick one, it would be Van Dijk out of all of them, just because of the way he plays football. Now, I know I'm risking holding the L this week because that's going to be not necessarily an unpopular decision, but one that most people won't agree with. But I don't care because that's what I believe. And if I had to choose any, it would be Van Dijk. Right, you've heard the arguments, but before we get to the results, we want you to do us a favour. Download the Super 6 app and take us on in the Super 6 Mini League. DT is currently top, which is really annoying. Now, I'm not Jeff Stelling. I don't have 250 grand to give you. But at the end of the month, if you're top of our league, it's 250 quid in your Skyrocket. All you need to do to join the league is use the password HOLDTL. Now, as I say, DT is top of the league currently. It's really annoying. We need your help to knock him off. 18 plus, terms and conditions apply now. Let's see who's holding the L this week.
This was very difficult, but I think for the strength of the conviction and being so wrong, I'm going to have to go for Akeem. I'm sorry, mate. At least Flav had a football kind of like taste argument, but to me to say he's the best ever, Vidic, I mean, that feels like an argument I just can't get on board with, unfortunately. I understand Flav's argument a little bit more than this one. I'm sorry, Akeem. Brilliant player, though.
This week, holding the L is Akeem. Like we say, five fantastic players, but Vidic isn't nowhere near the top, in my opinion.
I'm really, 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 really sorry. But Akeem's got to hold the L this week for me. I think he made his bed and now he's got to lie in it, unfortunately. I think Vidic is the 3rd best centre-half of the Premier League era for Manchester United. He's not the best centre-back out of this list. He's just not. I'm really sorry.
Who's going to hold the L this week? All three, everyone. You know, Chris, Steve and Flav, they all deserve to hold the L. It's absolutely atrocious views from start to finish. Just been terrible, to be honest. I've never seen so much nonsense. So yeah, all 3 of them hold the L.
Okay, so Akeem, unfortunately you've held the L this week. Have you got anything to say?
What?
Well, I mean, technically, I guess if we're going to give you 3 votes, then it's a draw.
That's it. It's changed. It's a draw. It's a tie break.
And look, I don't think the people over at Super 6 will, allow you to have 3 votes. I don't think that's fair. But look, we mentioned that there might have been an element of ganging up here. I don't think so. What happened is you made the wrong decision, right? For Vidic being on top. But I get it, biased. I love that stuff. That's what I'm all about as well. And what I did is play the Van Dijk Liverpool angle. Now, I believe what I said, but I thought, well, Chris can't vote against me because Van Dijk, I'm essentially teamed up here. And I'm not holding the L this week. Not again, because I've had it twice. Look, this game isn't about the right answer. The game is don't hold the L. And unfortunately, Akeem, this is the way the cookie crumbles.
Being in some of those tactics, man. Genuinely, like, clever Flav. Tactical play. I like it.
Thanks. I've been thinking about this all week.
I think we've just summed it up that I was the only person who gave a genuine answer after a lot of analysis from my heart as well, completely unbiased, whereas everyone else was being tactical, and that's the difference right now.
I chose a man over the guys getting a statue at my club.
Sorry, Stephen, what did you say?
Yeah, obviously I was being biased, choosing a man over the guy who's about to get a statue, who my channel's named after, for what it's worth. You know what I mean? Literally.
Okay, boys, thank you so much. Yes, this week we think that Akeem held the L, but the most important opinion comes from you guys. If you go over to the community tab, you can click and vote and decide. 55% said that I held the L last week. Let's see how high we can get Akeem. We'll see you next week.